Welcome to this week's episode of Design Uncensored, where we talk all things color, trend, and design. And we just get real. I mean, we're just going to ask lots of questions, dig in, and learn about what's trending in the world of color and design. So again, I'm so excited to have Peggy Van Allen with me tonight. We're going to wait for her to jump on. She is the current president of Color Marketing Group. And for those of you who don't know, Color Marketing Group is the premier international color forecasting association. And it is an international group that I've been personally a member of for almost 20 years. It's a really interesting organization in that it's kind of cross verticals and cross markets, meaning all kinds of color people are involved. We've had members in the past from everything from Crayola to Kleenex tissues. We have members from Toyota cars to cosmetics. And we get together as color professionals once a year at a major summit, and then multiple times a year. Right now they're doing them actually via Zoom on a smaller scale to forecast color, to share information about what we're seeing in our categories, in our markets, again, whether it's paint or furniture, cars or cosmetics, like I said before, and just talk about what consumers are wanting. But what's really cool about Color Marketing Group is that we're talking about something that's called a driver. What drives those trends forward? So let's see, I got a request from Color Cells, which is Color Marketing Group's handle, to join. I'm going to let them in and see if that is actually Miss Peggy. So let's see. Good. Well, Peggy, thank you so much for agreeing to be on live with me tonight. Yeah, so I was saying cheers with water. I don't know if that's like illegal, but I'm trying to hydrate these days.
I have my coffee.
You have your coffee. All right. So caffeine and water, it's good. You know, whatever floats your boat. We have lots of people already joining live with us. And so on Design Uncensored, the fun part is I've been interviewing experts on color design and trend, you know, really digging into what's happening in the marketplace. Now, the interesting thing, and I was starting to tell everybody who's watching a little bit about Color Marketing Group, and I want to talk tonight about your view through that lens, but also, you know, about the rest of your career, because you're not just the president of Color Marketing Group. You have your own agency, and you have a very, very broad, interesting background. But trend forecasting is something that's really always important from consumer markets. It's interesting because right now, you know, while we're all sort of in this very strange time, in this pandemic, I think it's making a lot of people pause and say, well, what does the X of the future look like, right? Fill in the blanks. What is the home of the future going to look like post-pandemic? What is travel going to look like post-pandemic? What's the hotel of the future? What's the office of the future, right? Fill in the blank on what is our life going to look like as consumers post-pandemic? And how does this, as a major driver, how does this really impact the way we view the world, the way we interact with things, the types of things we want to surround ourselves with, the colors we want to be surrounded with? And so I think trend has really come to the forefront because of this. For people who perhaps weren't trend forecasters to begin with, I think it's impacting everyone, right?
Sure.
From retail to real estate, that what are consumer buying behaviors and what's going to move that needle for us? So I was telling the viewers a little bit about color marketing, but tell us about, you know, your role in it and a little more about Color Marketing Group.
I've been a member for over 20 years. Started out right when I got into, started working for a paint company, and needed to learn a little bit about how to evolve in my role there as a color marketing person. And you know, what you said about the importance of forecasting right now, it is certainly a very uncertain time. And while in my job, I'm looking at forecasting all the time, it does seem like it is much more important now. Sort of, you know, personally as well as for businesses, you know, you want to know how you can plan for the future. And so that's really why Color Marketing Group is even more important now than it has been before, especially because there's so much information out there. The beauty of Color Marketing Group for me is that it's sort of a bridge between all of us who are doing this. We all come together and work on these color forecasts together, and it's the conversations that we have, sort of sharing what we know within our own business and seeing what other people are doing in their businesses, and then that helps us to get a broader perspective of what's going on.
Yeah. And can you explain, because we use the idea of drivers, drivers of trends is something we talk about a lot at the summits and when we get together. You want to just explain, sort of in a bite-sized piece, what does that mean, a driver of trends?
Well, we're studying human behavior, basically. What are we, we look at all different aspects of the economy, cultural things that are going on, all the different aspects that affect you as a human being, basically, and what affects you maybe when you're shopping, if we're looking at consumers. So what is going to be, what's triggering something that's shifting in the way you are living, basically.
Right, and that could be anything, right? That could be economic, it could be
anything.
An election year, it could be a major...
Right. It could be an event. It could be a big event. And this obviously is an event that's global. So it's definitely going to have an impact, and certainly one that we have never experienced before. So that opens up the whole new, how do we forecast when we don't
even, and then that leads me into the question. So as the president, and I know that this is not a one-woman show. We get together with a couple hundred people typically at our summits. But what's your prediction? You do this really for a living, is help companies, pick their palettes, correct?
Yeah. I think, so I've sort of been looking at the forecast that we had put together for 2021. Mm-hmm. And sort of taking an eye, because whenever we do a forecast, we do it 2 years ahead. So the 2021 forecast was put together 2 years ago. And so in 2019, we don't just put it out there and then it's done. We never look at it again. We still look at it. We maybe see how it's evolving and how it's changing based on different things that are happening. So I looked at the 2021 forecast that we did, and what was really interesting to me is that I could pick out certain stories. We create these color stories to explain the trends and the colors, and I was able to pick out quite a few stories that seemed a little. In retrospect, it's like, how did we know that? Because they fit so well.
Which ones jumped out at you?
Well, there's one that we did for North America that we called Time Warp, and it was all about how we are changing the way we work, whether it's working from home. That was already a trend that we saw happening, and that's sort of what I kind of was leading to, is that all the trends that we're forecasting, they're going to be impacted by this one big thing, but they're more about all the other things that built into that story and into that prediction. There's a lot of factors that go into it, but that particular color story was about the changing work environment, people working from home, the global work environment, how sometimes it doesn't matter what time zone you're dealing with people in a completely different time zone, so you have to be flexible and you have to be able to adapt in that way. And so basically it was just sort of a story about how our whole perception of time has changed. And I think certainly the situation we're in now, obviously we can hardly tell what day of the week it is, let alone the time of the day.
One of the memes that I saw said something like, it's Blur's Day.
Yeah, perfect.
Right, so I'm talking about a time warp.
yeah. And so then there was another trend, I believe this came from Asia Pacific.
So I just want to go back for 1 minute on this, and it was called Time Warp, correct?
Yep.
So describe the colors to us. What does the palette look like, or do you have it to show to us?
I can't show it to you.
You have to be a member to access.
Proprietary. I don't even, but I don't think I even have the, I've got the color card for the whole North America forecast, but I can talk a little bit about...
tell us in terms of direction, do you feel that it's going to go more saturated with palettes because of this? Are we looking for happier colors? Do you see color going more neutral? Where do you think the American consumer is going to be?
Well, some of the colors, I think in this particular color story, there were warmer colors, colors that are more, that make you feel sort of like counter to that time warpy, I don't know where I'm at, but a color that makes you feel more rooted. So sort of a grounded, brownish red color. We had a color that was a purple.
Mm-hmm.
Our key color actually came from that
purple,
story.
like your shirt, like a lavender.
Actually, more of a blue purple.
Okay.
The color that was our key color for North America, we called mist, and that was sort of like, we called it a cleansing breath, a very pale blue, kind of a positive, a color that sort of evokes that feeling at dawn, where night is turning to day. So it's a very uplifting, positive color.
Was it a green infused blue or like a pretty?
It was a pretty pure blue, but very pale. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
So those were some of the colors for that story.
Yeah. And then your past history, I know you were working in paint for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, many years for a paint company. 17 years, I think.
And was the process the same in coming up with sort of the new forecast for paint colors?
It was a little different in that, and we would put together forecasts for our brands, but we also had to look, with the paint company, you have 1,000 colors in your rack, but you certainly want to pull certain colors out and put them in the color cards or in a collection so that it is a collection that people will be looking for. I mean, you don't want to just randomly choose colors, and that's why color forecasting is so important, is that you want to know what colors the consumers are going to be looking for. And also key to being in these workshops that we do with Color Marketing Group is I can find out what the people in the different related industries to the paint company are doing. So I know what kind of colors are going to be coming out for, for the faucet company or the, textiles or whatever. So I know what's going to be out there and on the market and available for people and what they're going to be looking for so that we can make sure we have good paint colors as well that are going to work with those colors.
Yeah. And what do you think, so beyond this office trend, you were starting to talk about some other trends that you think are going to be coming.
Another one was, we called it Phoenix Rising from the Ashes,
okay.
Which again, very prophetic. That one was talking a little bit about, it was sort of environmentally focused, but talking about how we're sort of going to be looking at healing. Again, very much what we're going to be hoping for in 2021 is a period of healing. Buildings being more conscientious about safety and a much bigger concern about that. So new spaces for nature, using nature to regenerate, the rebuilding, reach to zero. So some of that sustainability and importance of that was also built into that, and just healing your mind. So that was all wrapped up into that whole trend about Phoenix Rising from the Ashes. And the colors for that one were interesting. It was kind of a mix of really dark, like a really dark black, blue, gray, sort of like the grounding color for the palette, and then a natural wool, which was a sort of a warm beige color. A yellow, a pastel yellow with a little bit of a green undertone to it. A color called Amazon, which was, they considered the illustration of scorched earth. So a rich red-brown with yellow undertones, waits for the rain for protection and the hope of renewal. And then another calming sort of blue lavender color as well.
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, I have the chills listening to you to say that this group, this color marketing group, forecast something that feels so, like you said, prophetic, so relevant today.
It really was kind of was funny when I was looking at the some of the images that we had put with this story. There was one that was like a bunch of flames, like a volcano or whatever, and I was just like, wow, that was before all of the fires in Australia, and this was the Asia Pacific group that actually put this forecast together. So obviously forest fires are a concern all the time, but it was like wow, that was even before that happened. So
yeah. And
even
are there macro trends that were sort of influencing this? I mean, like you said, obviously not just the earth and environment was a big driver for that. concept, but were there other things that you feel were in the psyche of why this was a trend that was forecast?
For this particular one, I think those were the biggies. The environment, and just the concern with preserving the environment, but also just people wanting to take action as far as doing that and being more involved and not turning a blind eye, I guess, to things that related to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all having time to sort of meditate on that today.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see consumer behavior moving after this? I mean, has the color marketing group executive board gotten together to talk about it, or are you seeing it with your other business?
Well, I think right now we're still in crisis mode. It is still as we've been shifting our chromosomes to be virtual chromosomes. That was a huge undertaking that we decided.
And just tell people what the chromosomes are, because
so the ChromaZone Workshops are they were they were more regionally focused. So we would have them around the world. Several in North America. I think that we had 10 last year in North America. And so members and non-members could join, and it was a full-day workshop where people would come in with their forecasts, what their top color trend story it was, and everybody presents their forecast. And then as a group, you work together to sort of narrow down to what the top 3 color stories are, and then take all the colors that everyone brought, and again, narrow those down to go with those stories. So each chromosome would come up with their own forecast. And then all of those chromosome forecasts within our different regions would then be steered to in North America, we would come up with the forecast, Asia Pacific, Latin America, and Europe. And so those 4 together become the world forecast.
And do you have to be a member to attend the chromosome?
You do not have to be a member to attend a chromosome.
Okay, so if anyone listening is interested in it, where would they find information on that?
You can go to colormarketing.org and you'll see go to our events page, and you'll see where we have a few more virtual chromosomes scheduled. So, as this whole virus and lockdown unfolded, we knew that we had to, we obviously, I mean, that's our product that we want to produce every year, is to put together this world color forecast. And we can't just make it up, obviously. So we needed to get that input from our members and from others who, like I said, at the chromosomes, who contribute. So we just did our best to shift gears and to do it as a virtual workshop, and no small undertaking, and many sleepless nights of, is this going to work? I mean, you work with color, you cannot 100% accurately view color digitally. It can't be done. So what were we going to do to work around that? And so it kind of forced us to sort of go back to some other building blocks that we have been working on in the last few years, as far as using a standardized color system that then facilitates communication of color a little better.
And what system are you recommending?
Well, we use NCS for ours, but we also, when we do our forecast, we match it into other systems like Munsell, Pantone, RAL, and then give people RGB values and LED values as well for all of the colors. But being able we know that the most valuable thing that we get from our workshops is the discussions that we have amongst all of the participants in the workshop, and talking about color and where those colors are coming from, but being able to get that information was the number one thing. But obviously we still needed to get the colors. So by using a standardized system, it enabled us to communicate colors, because the system, the NCS system, just uses the numbering, tells you what the color is. It basically tells you in the in the whole window of that color. Yeah, it tells you exactly. It's not just I've got a bluish purple. Well, it's a 90% blue, 20% or 10% red. So it gives everybody a picture in their mind. And when we talk about color, that's another important aspect of our forecasts and of our color stories, is that we're really wanting to tell people what the direction is of the color. It's not so much that it's a specific shade of yellow that matches this paint color, or that, is this NCS color. it's a color that, is shifting to red. And why is that yellow shifting to red? Why are we as consumers looking for a color that's shifting to red? People want to talk about grays, and are we done with grays, and what's.
So that was actually one
thing?
of my questions for you. But before we get to that, just talk to me one more minute about Chromosome. Who would that be good for? So it's great, obviously, if you're a color marketing group member, but who else might be interested in joining a Chromosome?
Anybody who has to determine colors for their job, whether it is graphic design, or you're developing products, or a marketing campaign, or really
interior designers join us.
It's a broad range, from artists to marketers to obviously designers, broad range of people, chemists, people that are working, in the lab and working with color from a more scientific standpoint. So it is a broad range of people.
Yeah, and the nice thing too, what I've always found is helpful from Color Marketing Group is we also talk about the types of finishes. So it's not just what is the color, but is it a lacquer? Is it a matte? Is it a metallic? Really more directional with information about where we're seeing it cross section.
Yeah, that's kind of, and that's something we dive into a little bit deeper at the summit. Mm-hmm. So in the chromosomes, you get the color stories, and they all build towards what the color forecast is, which is a huge palette, 64 colors. When you're at the summit, we break down into what we call color app workshops, and then you sit down with groups of people and you discuss where you're going to apply those colors, which colors apply to your industry, how you're going to use that color, or in what combination you're going to use that color with the other colors. So that's, again, another level of information for taking that, more raw color information. How are you going to actually apply that color?
Yeah. So, all right, let's get back to the question at hand, which is, what's the deal with gray? Is it going to stay? Is it going to go? What's your prediction about it?
Nothing goes that fast, as you know, and nothing's going to go away, especially if it's colors that are on products that are long term. We're starting to see that shift where warmer colors are coming back, and people are even using the beige word.
Okay, the beige word is back.
Make some people happy.
Right.
Some people are fatigued of gray, for sure. And I think 2021, it will be a period of a little bit of wait and see. Maybe not so many big jumps when it comes to color, but I do think people will also be craving color. And I think we see it now, even with people paying a lot more attention to their homes because they're stuck in their homes for such a long period of time. And you're looking around, and I'm looking around. I'm like, I need more color.
Right.
I need warmer colors. I need more soothing, comfortable colors.
I know people are renovating bathrooms and homes, and it's interesting. I think, from what we're seeing on consumer buying behavior, and it saddens my heart because I come from the hospitality industry, and I have such wanderlust. I love travel. I love experiencing new culture. I love getting the influence of color and pattern and texture and food from travel. Mm-hmm. But right now it's so up in the air. I mean, international travel is not even something that I'm considering for the next few months, let alone, who knows how quickly that'll open up. But I think I'm not alone. What we're hearing from our clients is, all right, well, since I'm not going to go on that vacation, I'm going to renovate, my bathroom. I'm going to renovate, my kitchen or my home in some way. So
yeah, and those
the same.
And those of us that travel for work to trade shows to get a lot of that color trend information, we're not able to do that. The trade shows are not happening. So
right.
So where do we find our color? I mean, obviously we're all doing as much as we can with the internet, but it's nice to be able to connect with people. I've actually been connecting with people, even former CMG members, just because they might, just want to know just to talk to another person about color and what are you doing? How are you getting your information? So it's just a good way to connect with people.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, and we'll be wrapping up soon, but tell me a little bit about your company. I know you dub yourself as a color anthropologist, which I love. I have my brother, I don't know if he's tuning in right now, but he's a PhD. He has an actual anthropology degree.
He's probably like, what is she talking about?
I know. I mean, I joke with him also when I describe CFG. I'm like, well, what kind of color anthropologist?
We are.
Talk to me about that and about your company a little bit.
We are. And it was, it came about because I was trying to describe what I do in a way that people could really understand it. And to just say you're a color forecaster, I don't think people truly understand it. I think you have to relate to what it is we do. And that is, like I said before, it's studying human behavior. And that is what anthropology is at its essence.
Yes.
So that is what I felt was the most fitting moniker that I could add to my name.
And so, tell me, what does your company do? Are you consulting with other manufacturers, or?
I do. Most of my business is with is two businesses. I work mainly with home industry clients, a broad range of things, from color palettes for paint companies to more specific products, maybe for a roofing company or a grout company, smaller scale projects like that. I also have a graphic design background, so that's sort of like my split personality of other projects that I work on that are graphic design, and that's kind of been a fun thing that I have worked on with color marketing groups too, is these videos that we use to illustrate our color trend stories. So I thought, a couple of years ago, it would be cool if we could take these stories, and rather than just having the PowerPoint and talking about the story and showing the colors, what if we could, add some music and the visuals and make it more animated and really get the feeling of the story across to people.
Yeah.
So I started working on that, and then that just kind of opened my eyes to, you see, it's a big world out there with people with social media, with videos and all of that. So that's sort of a fun thing to be able to explore and sort of teach myself to do as I'm moving along. But that's, like I said, that's sort of another split.
But I love it. So again, for those of you watching, there's actually a job. Like there are people who do this, which I always found fascinating, and I'm sure so many people do too. We take it for granted, right? It's hard enough to decide what's going into your bathroom, let alone to give consideration that somebody picked all those grab colors.
Right.
Somebody picked all those tile colors. Somebody picked the palette that you see at your paint store. Somebody picked the marble finishes that were going to be shown, for more than that season, like you said. And I think we think of it in fast fashion, right? Like you see colors come in and out in these kind of disposable fashion industry. But you don't necessarily think that there are people, in more than just Pantone. I think Pantone's done an amazing job. Like you said, Color Marketing Group publishes Pantone references as part of it. It's an important color reference system. But it's not the only color reference system. And that this, what's interesting about this group is that it really is comprised of hundreds of people who are involved in selecting color in some way, shape, or form. And to your point, whether it's at the technical level of the chemists that are putting together the compounds that make those colors a certain way, or that give those colors the shimmer that we're trending, or the interior designer who's going to spec the project, or the builder who's going to put the roof on. Yeah,
so many jobs that you don't, and industries that you don't even consider that they would have to worry about color. Every industry should worry about color and should make sure they have the right color. Even the person that's doing the mattresses. They have to choose the right colors to go on that mattress, even though it's going to be covered with a sheet or whatever. There's so many other industries.
I know we've thought about this. It's stuff we've talked about. Consumer buying behavior, whether they're in a shop or online, how much of an impact does color have on that buying decision?
The statistics I've heard quoted, and I can't tell you where it came from, but it's 80% of the decision.
Yeah.
And it certainly is probably one of the first things that you see when you're deciding or trying to decide. It's maybe like the first decision you have to make.
Yeah. So color really has such a massive impact on whether or not somebody's going to gravitate toward your product, whatever that product is.
Absolutely.
So it's critical, thought for any kind of merchant, whether it's online or brick and mortar.
Right. And it's not And not only depending on what the product is, but not just the particular color, but maybe the combination of color or
I know, I'm looking at us,
the
and
context
I
of
like
the
our
color.
palette right now. I like the purple and the russet. And
Yeah,
our
yeah.
palette's very harmonious right
Very,
now.
very much so.
All right, Peggy, lightning round. You ready?
Oh,
and
no.
Then we're going to wrap it up. All right?
Okay.
So it's fun and easy now. Number one, what's your favorite color?
Oh. We all say the same thing. We can't pick our favorite child. Today. This is my favorite color today. How about that?
Okay, perfect. I gotta say my favorite is the one that sells. So I'm very biased. You know. Okay, what are you binge watching these days?
Finished Ozark. There's been some good ones. Just watched a really cute show, Never Have I Ever, on Netflix. Just finished watching that one. What else? Oh, Schitt's Creek. That was awesome.
That's good. That's
awesome
a
series.
very good one for a laugh. Although I watched it with my 10-year-old, and it's mildly inappropriate, but
I've gotten to the point.
Fast.
I've gotten to the point with the language and all that. It's like,
I know. All right. If you could travel anywhere in the world when this pandemic is over, where's the next place you're going?
Oh, well, I was supposed to go to Sweden. Supposed to go there last week, actually, for the European conference. So I'm hoping that'll be on the agenda for next year.
Okay, all right, good. And do you have a dream client?
My dream client would be someone who appreciates the value of the right color and having the right color. I can't say that all clients necessarily do. So I think that is the ideal client to me.
Okay, and then last question before we wrap it up, which is if you weren't a color marketer as a professional, what else would you be doing as a career?
Oh boy. I don't know. Chef maybe? I love cooking.
Okay, good. All right, there you go. Still putting your palettes together.
Yes, very creative.
Forecasting flavors instead, you'd be telling us it's fig and blood orange.
Yes. It's all multi-sensory, right?
Absolutely. Good. Peggy, thank you so much for joining me this week for Design Uncensored. I know I learned a ton. I'm glad to hear, what these palettes were. It's a little spooky. I know Color Marketing Group has been dubbed the color mafia in the past.
Not at all.
Some of the product was just so spot on. It was like,
I know.
But again, thank you so much for sharing your time and your insight with us tonight. And I'm wishing you just health and safety and only good things. And hopefully we'll see each other again soon in real life and in person at one of the summits.
I hope so, Stacy. Thank you.